What's up, your boy Domuto. We are back with another video. Today we're watching Patrick CC, the tragic tale of Keanu Reeves and Drew Barrymore. I know a little bit of Drew Barrymore backstory, a little bit, that she was very famous at a young age, and she was just at parties and clubs at a very, very young age. Not even a teenager. She was at the clubs at a fucking 9-year-old, 8-year-old, or something like that. So her life was wild. And I don't know nothing about Keanu Reeves, but but we gonna get into it, man. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Oh, what the fuck was that? Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, and we gonna get into it.
Drew Barrymore was just 9 years old while suffering from the devastating effects of addiction. Because of her Hollywood success, she spent her nights and weekends in clubs with full-grown adults who were supplying her with substances. As if that wasn't crazy enough, her own mother was the one bringing her to these clubs and parties. With no father figure in her life, Drew had no way out of this darkness. That was until she met one man who understood her struggles on a deeper level, Keanu Reeves. Keanu had also been abandoned by his father. He also had dealt with the complicated life as a child actor. Therefore, he could not live in good conscience if he just watched Drew spiral down even further. And one night, while Drew was at rock bottom, Keanu made a decision that would drastically change her future. It's a miracle Drew Barrymore made it out of Hollywood alive. And this is how it happened. The Barrymore family is one of the largest acting families in entertainment history, going back more than 400 years and spanning 7 generations. The family's roots in theater started in 18th century Europe, with Thomas Haycraft Lane and Louisa Roos Lane, who were traveling actors. At that time, traveling actors would move from town to town performing plays in town halls, inns, and even churches. Essentially, wherever they could gather an audience, they would put on a show. The Barrymore name itself was chosen as a stage name by Herbert Blythe, Drew Barrymore's great-grandfather, who became known as Maurice Barrymore. Maurice moved to the United States and married Georgiana Drew, who also came from an acting family. Georgiana's father, John Drew, owned the famous Arch Street Theater in Philadelphia, which was sadly demolished in 1936. Maurice and Georgiana became the parents of 3 legendary actors, Lionel, Ethel, and John Barrymore, who became known as the Royal Family of Broadway. These siblings found major success in theater and film during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Lionel Barrymore started on Broadway before moving to Hollywood, where he acted in over 200 films, including Grand Hotel and the Dr. Kildare series. He won an Academy Award for Best Actor for his role in A Free Soul. Ethel Barrymore also started as a stage actress who later acted in films and ultimately won an Academy Award for her performance in None But the Lonely Heart. John Barrymore was the most famous of the siblings. He starred in classic movies like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and Dinner at 8. Unfortunately, John's son, who was also named John Drew Barrymore, had a lackluster acting career whose most notable appearance was in the TV series Gunsmoke. The family's name was almost entirely extinct from the entertainment industry, so all the pressure to keep the legacy alive fell on one innocent little girl, Drew Barrymore. Drew was born on February 22nd, 1975, and just 11 months later, she would land her first acting role in a commercial for Puppy Chow dog food.
What the fuck?
This is a baby, and this is a baby. They both have special nutritional needs. That's why a baby should have his very own baby food, and why a puppy should have his very own puppy food.
Barrymore appeared in a couple of TV movies and shows in her early years. At around age 4, she was cast in the TV movie Suddenly Love. Then she had a small role in the horror TV movie Bogey when she was around 5. Immediately after that, she made her first feature film debut in Altered States, which was a 1980 sci-fi horror film directed by Ken Russell. Although her role was small, it opened the door for her next film, which would drastically change her life. At age 6, Drew would secure a major breakthrough acting role in the iconic film E.T. the Extraterrestrial. E.T. is about a young boy named Elliot who discovers and befriends a friendly alien stranded on Earth. Elliot and his siblings hide E.T. from the authorities and help him find a way back to his home planet. Drew Barrymore played Gertie, Elliot's younger sister. Gertie is a curious, lovable character who quickly warms up to E.T. and helps her brother keep him a secret.
Is he a boy or a girl? He's a boy. Was he wearing any clothes? No, you can't tell. Not even Mom. Why not? Because, grown-ups can't see him. Only little kids can see him. Give me a break.
Drew's performance stole the hearts of millions around the world. Not only was she adorable, but her innocence represented the joy and wonder that we need to protect and cherish for our children.
Oh, they
and it
weren't
turns
doing that
out she
shit.
was just as pure behind the scenes.
Now, I believed E.T. was real.
You asked the wardrobe lady if you could have a scarf for E.T.'s neck, because he was going to get cold.
In June of 1982, E.T. became an instant classic after it grossed a whopping $800 million worldwide on a $10 million budget, which made it the highest grossing film of all time, and held that record for about a decade until it was broken by Jurassic Park. But before we dive deeper, a quick word from today's sponsor.
Shout
Underdog
out
is
to him
the
and the
place to
sponsors,
play
bro, you know
if you're
what
a
I'm
fan looking to cash in on all of your favorite athletes' performances. Born to act, really even had a conscious mind today and turn every bucket into a W with Underdog. Drew Barrymore had a more successful career than 99.9% of actors before she barely even had a conscious mind. She was what people call today a Nepo baby. And while that may sound like a negative connotation, nepotism is actually a convoluted subject when you break it down. People often said that acting was in her blood or that she was born to act, meaning that she essentially inherited this amazing window of opportunity built off the hard work of her ancestors. Which is good, but that would also cause some people to hate her because there are so many actors that won't ever get the same chances or opportunities just because she is related to the right people with the right connections. However, there is a third way to assess nepotism that most people tend to ignore, and it is the ramifications that a child faces later on in life when they are essentially forced into a life or career without having any choice. Due to the success of E.T., you could argue that she not only honored but carried the legacy of her family's name. Unfortunately, her father did not care. He was merciless, violent, and abusive towards her. Drew's earliest memory of her dad was the time he tossed her into a wall. She was 3 years old. He also held her hand over the flame of a candle, telling her that pain is imaginary. Talk about someone who was not a careerist. He was like, "I will burn this effing dynasty to the ground," Drew said.
Nigga.
Considering her life at home was so dark, it's actually pleasant knowing she found some solace on the set of E.T.
When I came onto the set, I was like, this is my family. Steven can be my dad, you can be like my mom, and you are my brothers.
Barrymore looked at director Steven Spielberg as a father figure. She says that he is the first person that ever cared about her.
We love each other. I go over to his house and we play games and we see each other a lot and we're still best friends.
Yeah, he's like the first person I knew cared.
Now, some people might think it could have done additional damage that Spielberg was kind of like a father figure, but not an actual father. So once it was time for him to move on with his career, he wouldn't be able to provide or care for her like he was when she was on the set of E.T. But Drew says this was not the case.
But isn't it sad when you look back at it? You had to look towards Steven Spielberg, the producer or director of the movie, for a father figure.
What? Who better?
Is it a good thing?
Yeah, it is a great thing. And by the way,
but didn't it crush you when he wasn't available to you? When Steven Spielberg becomes your father figure and he's not really your father, and then you go, "Where's Steven? I need him."
He was never unavailable to me.
After E.T., her child acting career skyrocketed. Steven then took Drew to Saturday Night Live, in which she became the youngest host in the show's history.
Relax, kid. You're gonna be just fine tonight.
Eddie Murphy.
Can I get you a glass of milk, honey?
Milk? I'm a Barrymore. Get me a drink and make it a double.
If only they knew that Get Me a Drink and Make It a Double wasn't exactly a joke. Sadly, at just 9 years old, Drew Barrymore's battle with addiction had begun. Her mother Jade got divorced from Drew's father and started solo parenting, which led to her mother taking Drew to the famous New York nightclub Studio 54.
Wow.
This club was highly exclusive, reserved for Hollywood elites to indulge in substances and animalistic fantasies. From the age of 8, Drew called herself a party girl, going out with her mother and her mother's friends
right now, boy. Hold on.
week. I had a mom, but she was more like my best friend, said Barrymore. She was like, "Do you want to go to school and get bullied all day, or do you want to go to Studio 54?" And I was like, "Yes, absolutely." In Drew's 1990 book called Little Girl Lost, she describes what it was like to go to Studio 54, and there was nothing as invigorating as walking in and being engulfed by the thud of blasting music and the swirl of flashing lights. It was Disneyland for adults, only I got to be a part of it. We went out pretty regularly, sometimes once a week and other times up to 5. 5, but nothing was ever enough for me. Being the youngest person at every party spoiled me. People treated me like a little toy, always telling me how cute I was, patting me on the head, or giving me a playful squeeze. However, since I was dependent on my mom, I couldn't always go when I wanted, which was all the time. This led to numerous arguments. I'd want to go out and party, my mom would want to stay home. I'd storm out anyway. She tells stories of using her little girl charm to convince grown men to give her alcohol. "Can I have a sip of your beer?" I asked. "Yeah, sure," he said, handing me the bottle. I'm sure he thought it was cute to give a little kid a sip of beer, but I quickly downed the remainder of his bottle. "Hey, I said a sip," he said, taking the empty from me. "Sorry," I shrugged coyly. "That's okay. You know, you just gave me my first beer," I said. "Really?" he said. "Cool."
Well, I had grown up very fast.
Wow.
And it's not very normal to see a 9-year-old at a big Hollywood party drinking. And it looks a little weird, and people were laughing and just saying, you know, "I dare you to do this," and I did, and I got really drunk, and it was such a scary, frightening feeling, yet it was such an escape from everything else in the world that I had a very liking to it.
It's important to know that Jade did not encourage, nor did she really know that Drew was drinking alcohol, because Drew did everything she could to hide it. Then again, she wasn't really supervising Drew either. Like, what do you expect to happen when you bring a kid to bars and parties surrounded by adults multiple nights per week? Eventually, they're gonna get curious and want to try that drink that every adult around them is indulging in.
So you started drinking at 9?
Mm-hmm.
To prove a point, or to feel good, or to get drunk, or what?
Well, I didn't really know. I mean, when I was 8, I had had 2 glasses of champagne, and boom, I was like tipsy and, you know, bubbly, and the life of the party. And I felt so good. All my problem had seemed, you know, to disappear for that hour that I was out of it. And I didn't realize that until I was 9 and I started casually drinking and realized,
Where would you
God,
get alcohol from at 9?
parties, friends, bars, clubs.
What were you doing at bars at 9?
A lot of the time it was for parties that I was invited to. A lot of the time I would walk up and they would be like, "Oh, it's little Drew Barrymore. Come right in, good publicity," you know?
Even though Drew was excited
That's
to participate in the adult party
That's
scene,
wild.
even she knew something was wrong with her circumstances. She was desperate for more strong male figures in her life, and luckily in 1986, she would meet one, and his name was Keanu Reeves. Drew landed a lead role in a made-for-television Christmas musical called Babes in Toyland alongside Keanu.
Obscure masterpiece, Babes in Toyland.
Sometimes obscurity's good, but there was a good heart in that piece.
We had so much fun making it.
It was crazy. And Richard Mulligan, Jill Sholin.
Babes in Toyland was about a young girl named Lisa who was transported to Toyland, a magical place under threat from the villainous Barnaby Barnacle. With the help of her new friends, Lisa goes on an adventure to save Toyland and restore holiday cheer. The movie received largely negative reviews, but Drew is grateful this film brought her and Keanu together.
I feel like I would look around and see the behaviors of the people that I wanted to be like one day, and they were always the kind, humble, gracious, hardworking, lovely examples. You are so that.
I don't know, that's kind of you to say that. Kind of you to say. I mean, I love what I do, right? I mean, I love acting. I like rolling up the sleeves. I like going to work, and we ain't doctors saving lives, you know? But we can change lives. We can help, you know?
Now, Keanu is extremely humble. He doesn't take credit for the compliment and tries to just move past it and start talking about acting. But Drew wasn't complimenting him about his acting, and he knew that. He knew that she was talking about him being a positive role model for her, who at the time was a troubled child. And despite Drew recognizing that Keanu could be a positive figure in her life, they had no means of remaining in contact. But little did she know he would be there for her again at her lowest moment. Drew's alcohol use was not exclusive to party nights out with her mom. After school and on weekends with friends, she did everything she could to get loaded. By the time Drew was 11, she and the oldest boy had graduated from what they considered to be boring childish games to more mature activities. Like raiding his parents' liquor supply and drinking themselves into a stupor that had them sleeping away the better part of the next day. By 12, they added pot smoking and were getting stoned as often as possible. Drew even experimented with cocaine at age 12.
Probably was one night,
I usually got to a point where I couldn't do anymore, or I didn't want anymore.
Yeah, she did this early. She doing it.
Usually I stopped after a while. But one night I just kept going
She doing the
and
interview.
going and going, and nothing, you know, I was partying for like 10 hours straight, or 12, 15 hours straight, and I just didn't stop, and I just like went black for a long time, and it was really scary. And I became a blackout drinker.
Naturally, you're probably wondering, how did it get this bad?
This
Where
is
was
at
her
15.
mother?
This is
And
at
how was
15.
Drew
She
even
talked
able
about
to
it
hide this
like
from
it was
her?
like it
Well,
was
you have to
years
remember
ago.
that it was the 80s, where it wasn't uncommon for children, even as young as 8, to roam about in their neighborhoods with friends all day and return home in the evening. They had more independence, but instead of playing on the playground or riding bikes, Drew was smoking cigarettes and drinking beer, and Jade was not supervising or guiding her.
And where were you when she was going to parties and bars at 9?
I was never with her at bars at 9, but I would go with her to parties. There were a lot of industry functions and then private social/business functions. And when we got there, we would stay together for time. Then she would go her way and I would go my way. And not knowing about the problem,
What the fuck?
I was not...
that. You know, when I got there, you know, of course I got my 9-year-old daughter with me, but, you know, she goes her way, I go my way. Like, nigga, what the fuck? What the fuck? You supposed to look much. If your child is 18 and under, you take them to a party, you know, or a get together. That's it, get together. A party is like a bar, and a party is crazy. Let's say you go to a family function. Like, you better keep your eye on your child the whole time, and especially like an eye on your child. Matter of fact, you should be next to your child in every walking step in that whatever function that you're at. You know, unless they go out to go play with some kids or something, then okay, you can watch them from a distance. But if there's no kids around, you better have your child right in your pocket, pretty much.
as scrutinizing as I should have been.
You just decided to just let her have some space?
Yes.
9 or 10, that's exactly the age where you need some guidance, some definition,
definitely.
You don't need a parent to back off and give you space at 9 or 10, especially if you were where Drew was at that time.
Part of it was the fact that I didn't have a dad. I felt like my mom was abandoning me because she was always off at work.
And to get a glimpse at
That's
what
crazy.
lying to her mother might look like, here is Drew at 12 years old on national television using her charm to lie to Joan Rivers about her partying at the Helena nightclub.
So, gonna be 12, but you go out late at night. I saw you, Drew Barrymore, cha-cha-cha, at Helena's at like midnight.
Really? Oh, okay. Now see, there's an explanation. Okay, see, Helena, I really don't go to clubs. I mean, people think, oh yeah, she's like she goes out every night. That is not true. See, Helena is my godmother, so I like to visit her every once in a while. Very seldom, but I mean.
Anthony Kiedis, lead singer of the Red Hot Chili Peppers, wrote about a time seeing a 14-year-old Drew Barrymore at Studio 54. I did a double take when I saw 14-year-old Drew Barrymore at the bar, drinking with the Bukowski crowd. She was adorable, spoke with a potty mouth, and carried on as if she were in her 20s. I was straining to approach her but backed off. I'd been in enough trouble. The next time I looked, she was gone. A couple nights later, she reappeared in the same spot at the middle of the bar, entertaining the bartender. I pulled the trigger this time, and whatever I had to say, she bought. Anthony was 27 years old at the time, seemingly admitting to fantasizing about a 14-year-old. And if you think that might be a stretch, in his 2004 biography, he told a story about sleeping with a girl who confessed to him that she was 14 years old the next day. Then he admitted to sleeping with her one more time after knowing her age. Seemingly trapped in an endless cycle of drug addiction and surrounded by predators, all while trying to navigate the pressures of fame, working a full-time job, going to school, and thinking her mother doesn't care about her, Drew felt all of her problems would go away if she just did not wake up one morning. And at age 13, she attempted to make that her reality, but luckily, she was unsuccessful. Her mother recalled the incident saying, "She told me in confidence that it was nothing but a bid for attention," Jade says scornfully. Jade sent her daughter to an 18-month stint in a mental health facility in Van Nuys, California, where she was treated for addiction.
And when you go through those 2 doors, you do not come out. And I was there for a year and a half.
Damn.
I hated it. I kicked, I screamed. one minute you're at movie premieres and clubbing, and the next minute you're in a full-blown institution.
Drew's treatment was tough. She had to follow a strict, military-like routine. She had to do her schooling, then attend group therapy, and one-on-one therapy sessions. But as a rambunctious child, she could not help but act out.
And you couldn't mess around in there, and if you did, you would get thrown either in the padded room or get put in stretcher restraints and tied up.
Why were you so bad that you had to go in the padded room?
I grew up, you know, with like the Go-Go's and Wendy O. Williams and Blondie and all these like badass chicks, and I just sort of would like, you know, channel my inner riot girl. And I, you know, some days it was really funny. I would rile up all the girls and I'd be like, listen, this place, these people don't care about you. Let's fucking show them, all right, everybody. I would totally rile the entire joint up.
At first, Drew hated that her freedom had been stripped away from her, but then she gradually started to come around to the idea that she was getting the help that she desperately needed. From there, she began to confront her addictive behaviors and her underlying childhood trauma. It was the institution that suggested she legally separate from her mother and be declared an adult at 14. Barrymore says the experts there believed that if she were to go back out into the world, she'd be better off on her own. Just at the age most kids become freshmen in high school, Drew was living on her own in LA as a 14-year-old legal adult.
When I first lived in my apartment, that I was so scared, and the truth was is that I would let the laundry and dishes and everything pile up. I didn't know how to clean. But this was where I learned how to take care of myself. You know, the books were the school, and this was like the domestic journey of learning how to live on your own. Kids don't know how to take care of themselves until you teach them.
Drew had incredible resilience. Unfortunately, word had spread throughout the industry that she was a drug-addicted lost cause, and nobody wanted to hire her for more acting roles. They just wrote me off as damaged goods, and I, sadly, understood that. Drew remained on the straight and narrow for 6 months, working at a coffee shop and trying to assimilate back into the real world. Sadly, she slipped back to her old ways.
Right, and on my 6th-month day, I celebrated by getting loaded. Yeah, really. Way to go, Drew. I got loaded that time because I wasn't doing it for myself at all. I was doing it to, like, not really impress everybody, but it had gotten out months before that I had a problem, and it was on the cover of the tabloids and everything. And I was so sick of hearing about it, I thought, okay, I'll just prove it to them, and I'll shut them up, and I'll do this. So when I was staying sober that time, I was doing it for everybody else.
Yeah.
And you just can't stay sober that way because you have to want it for yourself.
Drew seemingly accepted that her future was over.
That's crazy.
She would just live the rest of her life looking for her next high.
Addicted
And she
at
had
14,
to, because the only way she could mask her
9.
shame was through drugs and alcohol. And although he is not a man of
I was
many
addicted to
words,
cartoons
Keanu
at that
Reeves
age.
understood Drew on a deeper level. Keanu's father, Samuel Reeves, struggled with substance abuse. He was in and out of prison for selling heroin until he ultimately abandoned his family when Keanu was just 3 years old. From there, he had various different men in and out of his life while his mother was dating. He lacked a father figure, just like Drew. Additionally, he was kind of an outcast in Hollywood like Drew. Early in his career, Keanu's agents told him that his name was too ethnic, which led to him temporarily changing his name to KC or Casey Reeves. Sure, he did eventually find success on the big screen, but his personal life did not get easier. In 1993, he lost his best friend and fellow actor River Phoenix. In 99, he lost what would have been his one and only child after the baby was stillborn 8 months into his girlfriend's pregnancy. Although he and his girlfriend separated, they remained good friends, and she tragically passed away in a car accident less than 2 years after they lost their child.
Damn.
Keanu had every reason to be spiteful, angry at the world, and spiral into darkness. And despite all of these tragedies that weren't his fault, he somehow remained humble, kind, and caring for others. Although he gets praised for gifting his stunt crew custom Rolexes, gifting motorcycles to fellow cast members, or taking multi-million-dollar pay cuts to save films, he shows his true character through small acts of kindness, like showing up to his fans' weddings, giving his seat up to a woman on the subway, spending time with homeless people on the street, or taking time to speak with and listen to his young fans. So while seeing Drew at her lowest moment, he
That's
knew
fire.
it was time for him to do something. On her 16th birthday, while
We
Drew
watched the
was in the
Keanu
club
Reeves video.
partying, Keanu Reeves tapped her on the shoulder. He was about to change her life.
I was at this club, and it was my 16th birthday, and you came in, and you walked in, and you grabbed my hand, and you took me outside. You put me on your motorcycle.
Oh, my.
And you took me on the ride of my life, and I was so free. I was such a free human being. It was just this moment where I just remember loving life. I hold it so dear because the older we get, the harder it is to get to that feeling.
Keanu and Drew raced through Los Angeles on a motorcycle, giving her the feeling of freedom and bliss while being protected by someone she knew genuinely cared about her.
The reason I love your reputation so much is because I want to live my life by that. Is to be a good person, like at my job, with my kids, with my friends, in no such order. But there's a problem I have with rebellion and authority.
No, rebellion is good.
It is?
It is, of course. You can't just kick out rebellion. Rebellion is usually a thoughtful gesture.
Even though it feels so impulsive?
Yeah, but it feels good.
Yes, it does!
And if you're barking and, you know, it depends on what you do with your bike.
Drew saw life in a whole different perspective. She realized that giving in to her addictions is not rebellion. That is surrender. Alcohol and partying was tying her down, not freeing her. Keanu was living proof that you can overcome your trauma. And after that night with him, she had to ask herself, am I gonna get back into acting and get my life together?
And I had to ask myself, like, did I really want to fight and prove
being blacklisted at
to
15
myself
is
that
crazy.
I wanted to be here? And the answer was a really genuine yes. Like, it was my love. It was my passion. It's what my family has done since the silent films and theater and into the talkies. Like, I feel a genetic cosmic pull, and I love storytelling, and I love it. And that was a really cool revelation for me, that I love what I do and I'm not doing it for anyone else or for the wrong reasons.
From there, Drew slowly started to rebuild her acting career, landing a role in the film Poison Ivy at age 17. Although the movie wasn't a blockbuster hit, it proved she could focus, stay clean, and work in the industry. Many of her roles for the next few years were smaller, lesser-known films. She focused a lot more on producing and writing, seeing as working behind the scenes was more manageable and creatively stimulating for her. And whenever times got tough, she thought back to people like Keanu.
Until now, we have both had the privilege and fortune to keep going.
Yeah.
And what a gift and a blessing that is.
Yeah.
Drew went on to have a spectacular career, landing prominent roles in blockbuster hits like Batman Forever, the horror classic Scream, Never Been Kissed, Donnie Darko, Charlie's Angels, Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, 50 First Dates, Fever Pitch, and countless other hits. In 2009, she delivered one of her most praised performances in the HBO film Grey Gardens, earning a Golden Globe Award and a Screen Actors Guild Award. This highlighted her versatility and growth as an actress over her 30-year Hollywood career. Drew continues working in front and behind the camera, but has ultimately settled into becoming a full-time mother and talk show host with her very own show called The Drew Barrymore Show, which is currently on its 5th season. Now, there are many factors that led to Drew surviving the depths of addiction and the ramifications of a terrible childhood. And let's not minimize the lifetime of hard work that she put in to overcome her setbacks. But Keanu's actions started a butterfly effect of her becoming the prosperous and gracious person we know today. You never know what somebody else is going through. And even if you think you do, simply the smallest act of virtue can drastically change the outcome of their future. So next time you have a chance to act, ask yourself, what would Keanu Reeves do?
I don't know what Keanu Reeves gonna do, but I'm gonna take that check, nigga. What you talking about? But anyway, shout out to Patrick CC for this video. Wow, Drew Barrymore had a really rough life. And it's very, very sad. Very, very sad that she had to go through that. And she had to do all that between the ages of 9 and 16. Just like being a addict at 10, 9. Like, bro, that's crazy. That is like wild. Like, please take care of your children, guys. Please take care of your children. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what your children doing, you know. And yeah, so make sure you like, comment, subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time, man. Peace.